The thing about betrayal is, it rarely kicks down the door. It's more like a slow leak under the sink, easy to miss until your socks are soaked and the floorboards start warping. My name's Marcus, and until last fall, I thought I was happily married. You know, the usual sitcom setup. Mortgage, 2 cars, in-laws I tolerated, and a wife who used sarcasm like sunscreen. Everywhere, all the time, especially around me. But here's the hook. The night everything cracked open wasn't some fight or discovery. It was dinner. Just dinner. A family gathering, string lights in the backyard, laughter, wine. And then Naomi, my wife, lifted her glass in a toast and turned me into a punchline. With a man who can't even satisfy me? Not likely. That's what she said, right there in front of her family. Her smirk told me she thought it was a joke. Her mother dropped her fork. I dropped my glass. Not on purpose. It just sort of slipped. It didn't shatter. Just cracked and rolled under the buffet table. No one even noticed. Except her brother, Dylan. He followed me outside when I walked away, hand shaking, brain buzzing like a kicked beehive. He didn't waste time. I saw her. Last week. With her ex. Now, let me pause here. That's how it starts. The unraveling. Not a confession. Not an apology. Just a data point. One you can't ignore. He showed me pictures. Her, outside a hotel. Holding hands with a man she once said was a joke. A kiss. The timestamp glared like a spotlight. My stomach didn't drop, it imploded. No shouting. No swearing. No violence. Just this eerie stillness inside me, like a lake before a storm. I didn't say much to Dylan. Just nodded. Walked away. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was devastated. Because I was planning. I spent that night sitting in my car, not to cool off, but because the thought of walking back into that house, our house, made my skin itch. I parked down by the old tennis courts, lit by one flickering lamp. Real dramatic setting, right? All I needed was a noir voiceover and a jazz sax in the background. I didn't go on a rampage. Didn't tear up wedding photos for torture closet. Instead, I got practical. I made lists. Contacts to remove. Accounts to change. Lawyers to call. Because Naomi, bless her smug little smirk, thought she could humiliate me publicly and privately, and I just eat it. She had no idea I was already setting the table for something else entirely. When I walked back in the next morning, she was already spinning the story. You were acting weird, she said. I didn't know what else to do. Like I'd forced her to crack wise about my manhood over wine and roasted chicken. I told her, calm and level, you could have talked to me like a person. Like a husband. Her only response? A shrug. She didn't even blink. That's when I knew the marriage wasn't broken. It was buried. 6 feet under, with her wedding vows on the headstone. So I started digging not to save it, but to exhume the truth. Over the next week, I moved money. Got a burner phone. Installed software. Not to spy, no, Naomi wasn't clever enough to cover her tracks. I already knew what she'd done. I just wanted the timeline. And the timeline? It went back months. Reservations for 2. Deleted messages. A scarf I never bought and cologne I never wore showing up in our laundry. She didn't just cheat on me, she made me an extra in the rom-com of her and her ex. I was the forgettable first act. But what Naomi forgot. I don't do revenge like a wrecking ball. I do it like frostbite, slow, silent, and impossible to ignore once it sets in. There's a unique kind of disrespect in silence, the kind Naomi mastered like a second language. After that dinner party debacle, we stopped pretending. No more morning kisses, no more check-in texts. Just 2 people orbiting the same house like emotionally distant satellites. And still, I let her think she was getting away with it. Let her think I was the fool folding laundry while she worked late. Then one afternoon, she came home with confetti in her hair. I was sitting at the counter, nursing a cold coffee I didn't even want, when I saw it. Tiny, glittering flecks near her temple. Like party residue. Like something joyful happened, and I hadn't been invited. She didn't mention it. Didn't even notice. Just dropped her purse on the table and started making a smoothie. Strawberries and almond milk. She was humming. That humming used to make me smile. Now it made my spine stiffen. You're being weird, she said, not looking up. We're not doing this passive-aggressive thing again, are we? She said again, like I was the one with secrets and backup plans. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My silence said more than any monologue ever could. That evening, her sister sent me a screenshot. No context. Just a photo from someone's now expired Instagram story. Naomi, in a red dress, laughing into the chest of a man whose hand was very comfortable on her hip. The caption? She said yes. I didn't feel my heart break. I felt it retreat. She was engaged, while still married to me, while sitting across the table from me, slicing chicken like she hadn't just said yes to someone else's future. This wasn't cheating. This was erasure. Recasting her life like I'd never been in it. And I was done being polite. The next morning, I packed a bag, not in a frenzy, not like I was running. No, I folded every shirt like I was packing for a business trip. Neat. Intentional. I left the toothbrush, left the cologne. She could keep the scent of me. After all, it hadn't mattered for a while. She was still asleep when I left. Her face looked peaceful in that twisted way betrayal always does, like someone who's already rewritten the story and cast herself as the victim. I drove. Not far. Just enough to get into a place with better coffee and worse carpet. A motel off Route 46, where the vending machine still took quarters and the ice machine wheezed like a dying animal. I needed quiet. I needed space. And I needed to stop pretending this was salvageable. It wasn't heartbreak. It was logistics now. 3 days passed. No texts. No calls. Naomi didn't come looking. Because she didn't expect me to leave. Not really. She thought I'd be right there when she got back, like a dog that forgives after every slap as long as the food bowl gets filled. What she didn't know. I'd been rehearsing my exit for weeks. I'd memorized the layout of our accounts. Knew which ones she didn't monitor. Knew what files to grab. Knew how to collect without alerting the suspect. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted a reckoning. And as fate would have it, the reckoning invited itself. On day 4, I got a message from her best friend. Not a call. A DM, short and cryptic. You didn't hear it from me. But check the Calder Estates website. Events section. My heart didn't race. It didn't even stir. I clicked the link like I was opening a weather report. And there it was. Private engagement dinner. Rory and Naomi, June 18th, RSVP required. Rory. Her ex. The joke she used to brush off with, God, I can't believe I ever dated that guy. Now they were having a catered announcement party. Fancy calligraphy. A dress code. My wife. My still wife. Toasting champagne flutes on my dime. You ever get punched by paperwork? That's what this felt like. I closed the page and stared at my reflection in the motel mirror. I looked older than I remembered. Like something had been draining me by the ounce for months, and I hadn't noticed until it was nearly empty. That night, I didn't sleep. I wrote instead. A letter. Not to Naomi. To Rory. Dear Rory. Congratulations. I mean that sincerely. You're inheriting a woman who will laugh at your pain before you feel it, who can gaslight you with a kiss and gut you with a smile. You're about to marry a master illusionist who can look you in the eye while planning your replacement. I should know. Because I was you. And I hope for your sake, you're not me. Signed. The Practice Husband. I printed 5 copies. 1 for Rory. 1 for Naomi. And 3 more, just in case. Then I booked a tuxedo. Not because I was invited, but because I wasn't. I had no intention of making a scene. No screaming. No confrontation. But I was going to witness it. Not the engagement. The performance. And I was going to leave something behind they couldn't unsee. The day of the event, I showed up early. Slipped in behind the caterers. Nobody questioned me. People in black ties and aprons look invisible at these things. I kept my head down and my pocket square sharp. The estate was massive. One of those places with more windows than people, manicured hedges, and fountains shaped like Greek myths. I scoped the room. Soft jazz. Champagne towers. Naomi glided across the room in a white dress that wasn't quite bridal, but close enough to hint at intention. She didn't see me. Of course she didn't. I was the ghost now. And ghosts don't cause scenes. They haunt quietly. I waited until speeches began. Her father got up first, talked about love, about second chances, about how Rory was like a son. Naomi's laugh floated like perfume, light, practiced, hollow. Then Rory stood, nervous, boyish, like he still thought love was supposed to be easy. Halfway through his toast, I made my move. I didn't rush. I walked to the gift table, placed a single envelope on top of the largest box, addressed in sharp, blocky letters. To the future Mr. and Mrs. Then I left. No backward glance. No dramatic pause. Just out the front door and into the June air that smelled of roses and lies. I don't know who opened it first. Rory, Naomi, maybe a waiter cleaning up after. Doesn't matter. What mattered is what came after. A week later, Naomi texted me. Was that you at the estate? I didn't reply. An hour later, why would you do that? I still didn't reply. Third message, you embarrassed me. And that, finally, earned a response. I wrote, no. I warned him. That was the last time we spoke. Sometimes revenge isn't a storm. It's a forecast. And that letter? That was just the thunderclap before the real weather rolled in. The funny thing about pulling off a clean exit is how messy everything gets afterward. Not for you. You've already packed your pride and gone. But for them, it's a slow-motion avalanche, and they don't even realize they're standing on the slope. After I dropped the envelope and walked away from that estate like some sharply dressed specter of consequences, I thought that was it. Done. Closure sealed in an envelope and delivered with all the subtlety of a judge's gavel. But the fallout came faster than I expected. 3 days later, Dylan, Naomi's brother, called me. Man, he said, without a greeting, you nuked the place. I was in the middle of folding laundry. Not hers anymore. Just mine. The silence in my apartment was honest. Lonely, sure, but at least it didn't hum with betrayal. What happened? I asked, like I didn't already have popcorn on standby. He let out a long sigh. Rory opened the letter during dessert. Naomi didn't know. She was in the middle of her little sparkle speech. You know, talking about how fate brought them back together. Real Disney Channel energy. Let me guess, I said. The letter killed the magic. Bro. Dylan laughed, tired and impressed. The room froze. You could hear forks hitting plates. He read the whole thing. Out loud. I paused, sock in hand. He read it out loud? Verbatim. Now, I hadn't written that letter for performance value. But I won't lie. It played better than I could have imagined. Apparently, Rory got to the line about Naomi being a master illusionist and looked up, deadpan, and said, "Is this true?" Naomi tried to laugh it off. Said it was just a bitter ex trying to ruin their moment. Classic. But Rory wasn't buying the reruns. According to Dylan, he pocketed the letter, told Naomi, "We'll talk tomorrow," and left. Alone. And? I asked. Dylan sighed again, this time with a little sympathy. She's been spiraling. Called me crying the next day. Said you ruined everything. No, I said. She ruined everything. I just mailed the receipts. He was quiet for a beat. Then, she doesn't know where you are. She doesn't need to. You okay? That one caught me off guard. Dylan and I were never close. But maybe something in my silence, my clean break, earned a little respect. I'm better than I should be, I admitted. And that was the truth. I wasn't thriving. Wasn't suddenly healed or dating or rediscovering my love of jazz fusion. But I wasn't drowning anymore. Just floating, still numb, but at peace in a way I hadn't felt in years. The next week, I got a message from Naomi's mother. Not a call. Not even a proper email. Just a forwarded invitation to a family reconciliation dinner. No explanation. No greeting. Just a date, time, and address. I stared at it like it was a test. Like if I clicked yes, I'd find myself trapped in a room full of people trying to rewrite history with place settings and polite small talk. I didn't respond. But I showed up anyway. Not because I wanted to see Naomi. Not because I wanted closure. Because I wanted to see what her version of events looked like, now that the truth had surfaced. The dinner was at her parents' house. The same place where she made that joke about me in front of the whole family. The same dining room. Same string lights. The irony was practically doing backflips. I wore the same jacket I wore to the estate. Call it poetic recycling. When I walked in, her mother blinked like I was a ghost. Her father stood up, stiff, unsure whether to shake my hand or call security. Naomi? She froze. She was wearing beige. Safe, neutral, forgettable beige. The color of retreat. She opened her mouth, probably to launch into some rehearsed speech. I beat her to it. Don't, I said. Let's just eat. And we did. The food was awkwardly delicious. Conversation was sparse. Everyone danced around the crater in the center of the table. What she did, what I revealed, what we all knew but no one wanted to say. Halfway through the meal, Naomi finally cracked. I made a mistake, she said. Not loud. Not performative. Just tired. I didn't look up. Just chewed. I don't know why I did it, she continued. Maybe I thought I could have both. The safety of you and the thrill of him. I swallowed. Took a sip of water. That's not an apology, I said. She nodded slowly. I know. And that, weirdly, was the first honest thing she'd said in months. When dinner ended, I stood, grabbed my coat. Her mother reached for my arm, whispered, "She's hurting." I looked her dead in the eye. So was I? For years. And then I left. No dramatic final words. No ultimatum. No gesture. I had nothing to prove anymore. Because when someone shows you who they are, and then you put it in writing, and then they hand-deliver your prophecy to their next victim during dessert, there's no encore needed. Some things don't need closure. They need distance. And I'd never felt further from Naomi than I did that night. While sitting 6 feet away from her. It's funny, the way peace settles in after a bomb goes off. Not the kind with fire and sirens, but the emotional kind, the one that leaves your life in pieces, but with everything still technically standing. That was me after the dinner. Not healed. Not avenged. Just emptied. I walked out of that house like a man who had just finished serving a sentence. Paroled from the prison of polite smiles, emotional labor, and pretending like I hadn't been publicly castrated in a backyard filled with fairy lights. And for a while, that was enough. The next week, I did things I hadn't done in years. I slept in. I bought cheap, ugly coffee mugs from a flea market. I painted a wall just because I could, and hated the color immediately. But I didn't fix it. Just left it there, loud and terrible, like a reminder that this space was mine now. I didn't speak to Naomi. She didn't try again either. No texts. No voicemails. Just digital silence, which honestly suited me fine. Until one day, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Thick, high-quality paper. The kind lawyers use when they want you to know they're serious. I opened it slowly, expecting divorce papers. And yes, there they were. Clean, cold, typed lines of legal closure. But there was something else tucked inside. A note. Not typed. Handwritten. In her cursive. Naomi's. It said, "You win. I hope it was worth it." No greeting. No signature. No apology. Just those 6 words. 6. That's how many she used when she humiliated me in front of her parents, with a man who can't satisfy me. And now, the same number to bow out. Or lash out. Hard to tell, really. I stared at that note longer than I'd admit to anyone. Not because I was moved, but because it confirmed everything I already knew. Naomi didn't want forgiveness. She wanted control. She wanted the last word. Even if it was a weak one. I didn't respond. I signed the divorce papers that night. Dropped them in the mailbox the next morning. And just like that, our marriage went from a ceremony to a contract to an ending. Neatly filed, legally clean, emotionally radioactive. I should have felt liberated. Should have popped champagne, gone out with friends, reinvented myself like a Netflix protagonist after a mid-season breakup. But I didn't. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and started a new folder. I named it Phase 2. You see, the letter at the engagement dinner? That was just the first play. A warning shot. Something to knock the smile off her face in public and let Rory know what kind of fairy tale he was signing up for. But after the divorce papers, after that note, I realized she still didn't understand. She still thought this was about revenge. She thought I'd lash out, burn her clothes, key her car, write angry Facebook posts that made me look like a bitter ex-husband with too much time and not enough self-respect. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was patient. There's a difference. And patience is what makes the next part possible. Because I knew things Naomi didn't. About her. About Rory. About the overlap between their resumes and that conveniently timed job offer she got last year. The one she said was totally separate from Rory's company. I knew things because I was quiet while she thought I was stupid. I knew where the skeletons were, because I helped bury some of them. And now? It was time to start digging them back up. The next morning, I took a drive. Not to see anyone. Just to think. Landline off. Phone on airplane mode. I pulled into a diner halfway between our old house and the city line. I ordered pancakes. Not because I wanted them, but because Naomi hated them. She said they were sluggish food, like carbs had a moral alignment. I sat there, staring at syrup I didn't need, and wrote names on a napkin. 3 names. 1. Claire, Naomi's friend, former coworker, and the only person she ever confessed things to when wine got involved. 2. Eric, Rory's business partner, and a guy I once caught staring at Naomi too long at a gala, before she even admitted she and Rory were back in touch. 3. Talia, the HR director at the firm where Naomi just landed her new role. A role she said she earned on her own merit. Yeah, sure. I didn't need to expose her. Not yet. I just needed to remind her that I could. People underestimate what you can do with receipts, emails, and old voicemails. They think moving on means letting go of leverage. But moving on, for me, meant building a quiet armory. not to destroy her, just to make sure the next time she tried to write me out of the story, I'd be holding the pen. And that was worth every pancake on the table. For the first time in months, I felt alive again, not angry, but alert. All that emotional rubble laid out, I knew what to build next. Phase 2. I started with Claire. A discreet online search revealed her new address. I sent an anonymous tip, just a nudge, to her boss about possible ethical concerns, citing overlapping interests between Claire and Naomi. It wasn't illegal, but it got Claire on HR's radar. Huge subtle stress in Naomi's life. Next, Eric. He and Rory were pitching a new project. I emailed a few industry insiders, nothing concrete, just a polite question. Has anyone else seen this exact same investor presentation? Feels vaguely familiar. Suddenly, Eric was explaining himself at board meetings. Then, Talia, the HR director. I forwarded a copy of an old voicemail Naomi had left me, raving about how she played office politics like chess. I phrased it like a concern. Can someone explain this to me? Within hours, Talia's inbox was buzzing. Each move was quiet, surgical, like reverse moss, organisms that thrive where trees once fell. Naomi's earned merit was turning into whispered rumors. She reached out to Dylan again. Are you getting these emails? She asked, voice wavering over dinner. It's ridiculous. Someone is trying to sabotage my career. Dylan didn't know what I was doing. Didn't need to. He just sighed and said, people need a hobby. That was all it took. Friend of a friend compressor knit anxiety for Naomi. She was unraveling slowly, carefully, publicly. Part 8. The tightening noose. Weeks passed. Naomi's calm exterior cracked. Rumors flitted around her at work. Claire was on thin ice. Rory was restless. I stayed off radar. No texts. No messages. My phone stayed in a drawer. But I wasn't inactive. I compiled everything. Screenshots, email threads, timestamps, voicemails. I labeled a folder, Exhibit A. Then I let it breathe. That's when Naomi started making mistakes. She forwarded a confidential email to an external consultant. She asked Eric to approve changes without documentation. She bited at Rory over minor financial discrepancies. It was like watching a time-lapse of a high-rise cracking under a quake. Rory confronted her. Not aggressively rational, almost fatherly. Naomi, what's going on? He said over takeout one evening. We're bleeding credibility. Naomi's relief at hearing his voice made me nostalgic. But respite was short. She snapped, said, some people resent my success. That was the moment I pulled a thread. I forwarded all my compiled docs, no commentary, to Rory. Subject, just so you know. Rory, I don't want to interfere, but there's context you deserve. These aren't rumors. You have the receipts. Naomi used you to soften her landing. Now she's burning bridges to protect the narrative. You deserve the full picture. M. He read it. He didn't respond. That silence said more than any reply would. By now, Naomi's face moved like someone startled, her eyes flickering, phone always in hand, posture deflated. She didn't know who exactly was behind it. She only knew everything was falling apart. Part 9. Convergence Point. The endgame approached like a train arriving on schedule. Rory called a meeting with Naomi and Claire. He'd read the emails, the voicemails. He quoted excerpts. His voice was calm, even gentle, but each word landed like a gavel. If this is how you want to run things, mistakes, omissions, deception, I can't stay part of it. Claire looked panicked. Naomi stared back, shoulders tense. That afternoon, Rachel in finance texted me. He walked. Headed out. All at once, my artifacts found their domino effect. Naomi called me. No caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. Her message, apologetic, shaky. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked for advice. She framed it as, I know I messed up. I need a plan. I didn't reply. Because that was the moment of clarity. There was no repair left for us. She didn't come asking for the truth. She wanted me to help mend her image. I deleted the voicemail after one listen. I didn't want to encourage her. Part 10. The finale. They say revenge is a dish best served cold or violent, but I never considered violence. Until now. I'm standing in an empty ballroom. Same estate where I sent that letter. Now it's a rental for high-end auctions and silent galas. Tonight, it's hosting a corporate gathering. I'm not invited. I'm the janitor, working under a false name. No weapons. No fists. Just a mop, cleaning floors as platters roll by and lulled conversations echo through crystal chandeliers. Rory's at the dais, giving a muted speech about resilience and trust. Naomi stands next to him, a practiced smile, like the one she gave when she toasted him in front of me 2 years ago. I stop by a table. A gifted photograph, Naomi and Rory, staged, her hand on his chest. I dust the frame with a simple cloth. I pause. No scene. No confrontation. Just me. This quiet man who buried his marriage, mined her lies, and rewrote the narrative. I leave the framed photo on a pedestal by the exit. Inside, it looks like part of the decor, just another reminder that every story is meant to be seen. Outside, I hang my janitor's smock on a coat hook, pull off my disguise, and walk out into the night. Later, Naomi texts me. "Who are you?" I don't reply, because she already knows. Her photograph stands backstage, witness to her own show. And so does the world, just like I always intended.